What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Welcome to the live show. We do this here thing on Mondays and Wednesdays at 3 o'clock Tulsa time, and we're coming off a wild weekend of college football. And I want to get to it, and I want to talk about a really hot button issue for both Oklahoma and Texas. Talk about the SEC basically becoming the Big 12 South or East, depending on how you want to categorize the SEC. I want to get into a little bit of how people are succeeding that have left UT. And I want to talk a little bit about some superlatives, some really outstanding ball as we've had canceled ball all over the place. But let me start with this. Congratulations to the Los Angeles Lakers, who were able to win an NBA title with just like two dudes, LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Now, all credit to the Miami Heat, who were never supposed to be there in the first place, and who looked like they were just making the effort. During Game 5, Game 6 comes around, and then we saw the Lakers basically lean forward, grip the controller a little bit tighter, and then put the clamps down on Miami because they were just trees over there. Between LeBron James and Anthony Davis, you got outstanding play from guys like Alex Caruso, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Even Danny Green got a ring. Now, I also need to add here, if you are not a Clutch client, you should consider being a Clutch client because 6 Clutch clients on that roster of 15 players. They all got rings now. Y'all only know 2 of them dudes by name. One of them dudes didn't even play in the finals. It's a wild, wild thing to think about. All right. So from that to the hot button issue of the day, which is that the 4 overtime thriller that led to the most points scored ever in the 120-year history of OU Texas should have never happened. With 6:06 left to play in the game, officials had to mark the ball and make a timeout. They asked that you add 46 seconds back to the play clock that was never there. Lincoln Riley said, hey, look, we knew that was wrong from jump. We thought that they were going to talk about it. They haven't. Up until now, the Big 12 conference office and the Big 12 officiating crew has not really addressed this at all. And this was caught first by fans on Twitter, then by beat writers, and of course, Lincoln caught it right away. Now, the reason that this mattered during the game is not only did it give Texas another 46 seconds to try to make this thing happen and to win this thing in regulation, but it also changed up the play calling for Riley because he's been rightfully chastised for a pass on third down when you're thinking maybe you make a different play call that doesn't stop the clock. And he's saying, look, if we got 46 seconds back to where we were looking at 152, yeah, sure, I would have made a different play call. But that's not what he got to do. He had to play it as it lies, as they say. Now, I'm past it because Oklahoma won that game. But I can understand why so many Oklahoma fans are not past it and don't think it's necessarily right that Texas got, another 46 seconds. It's gone. It's done. Does it change the outcome of the game? No, it doesn't. It got to 4 overtimes. I had 4 heart attacks. Oklahoma won the ball game. Oklahoma's 2-2 going into this bye week. Meanwhile, the University of Texas is in shambles. Tom Herman is very much on the hot seat, and regardless of how this season goes, unless he won the Big 12 championship, I don't think that he gets to stick around after this. You're also talking about some added division over the eyes of Texas, which is back before Texas as controversy in light of Black Lives Matter and what that meant on the University of Texas campus. But across the Big 12, it's even it's harder to predict what actually is going to happen in this conference because now the Kansas State team that beat Oklahoma is no longer that Kansas State team. Skylar Thompson had surgery for an upper body injury that's going to get him out for the year. Now, Texas Christian lost to Kansas State over the weekend, but Will Howard looked anything but good in that. 8 of 19. He threw a pick. He had 86 yards on the ground, and he's one of the highest rated prospects to ever commit and sign with Kansas State. But Skylar Thompson was a very different quarterback compared to him and had 30 starts. And I think he had like 626 yards passing before the injury. I don't know that Kansas State team is good enough to win a Big 12 championship. Brock Purdy and Iowa State, on the other hand, look like they might be able to keep this together. Same thing with an Oklahoma State, who we thought were going to play against Baylor, but that game got canceled. So now people are hammering West Virginia at plus 2,000 to win the Big 12 championship because that's where the value is. But if you take a look at OddsShark earlier this morning, you'll see that Oklahoma still has the best odds to win the Big 12 championship. I find that to be wild because Oklahoma already has 2 losses against Big 12 teams. Now, can they get into the championship? Absolutely. Of course they can. But there is no margin for error for them, and they'll need some help here, particularly from Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Baylor, to start, with a few. Then looking around college football, I think we're all a little bit amazed to see just how bad defense is being played, particularly in the SEC, but across the country. Like, it seems like the only team that can play defensive football right now is Clemson, which makes them the favorite to win the national championship. But watching Alabama give up 48 points to Ole Miss in Lane Kiffin's first year says 2 things for me. One, Ole Miss is going to be a force here in the next couple of years if they aren't already, right? Because it's not just that they put up those points on Alabama, they put those points up on Florida as well, okay? They put those points up on Kentucky. Ole Miss is a very good football team. They'll get better defensively, and there was no excuse for how bad DJ Durkin's defense was against Alabama, because as good as Ole Miss was, Alabama was better. Alabama put up 700 yards of offense against the Ole Miss defense, all right? Like, that's not going to cut it. And in a game where you score 48 points, you should win. That's what it comes down to for me. And if you don't win, you have to take a look at who your defensive coordinator is and what he was choosing to call and how he's choosing to call it. Now, on Alabama's side, Dylan Moses, Nick Saban said that they thought that Ole Miss might have known their signals. To which Lane Kiffin has said, number one, I didn't know their signals. Number two, if we knew their signals defensively, we wouldn't be able to use them in the first place because we're going so fast. This morning, Lane Kiffin said, look, we call a play just before the play ends on the next one. So before they spot the ball, we already got a play signal in, and we're trying to go as quickly as we can. To that, Saban said, look, we didn't have enough time to try to disguise our defenses and our coverages, so that made it easier to identify what they were looking at. And if Matt Corral is that good, then perhaps we should be talking about Matt Corral in a very different way, because Kenny Yeboah is also getting everything that he wanted and needed against that Alabama defense. Now, do I think that Alabama is going to show up as badly as they did against Georgia? Absolutely not. I think that Nick Saban, who is a defensive back by trade and a defensive coordinator by trade, is going to probably assume the controls from Pete Golding in practice this week to be sure that his boys show up ready to play, because it's not that Stetson Bennett is that good, it's that he's not that bad, right? He's still got what it takes to pick you apart. Same thing with having George Pickens on one side and now Keiris Jackson on the other, to say nothing of Demetrius Robertson and those tailbacks that they have. So I'm interested to know what that game is. But the game that I'm most looking forward to, and that I put in the headline, is LSU and Florida. LSU and Florida is so wild to me and so interesting for a number of reasons, not the least of which is we're in the middle of a pandemic, COVID numbers are spiking, and we got Dan Mullen swearing up and down that he needs 90,000 people at the Swamp and basically daring his administration to not let them do it by invoking the governor. Now, the governor doesn't run the University of Florida. The University of Florida president runs Florida. And while they have been open for business in the state of Florida, and I don't know that it's going to come down to their word versus his or one edict or another, I thought it was really interesting that Dan Mullen decided to throw that gauntlet down. Because why would you? Especially after you just took a loss at Kyle Field to Texas A&M, a loss that many of us didn't think you should have taken in the first place. Because not unlike Alabama and Ole Miss, in a game where they score 38 points, I feel like they should win the game. Florida had an 11-point lead going in the second half. They put up 500 yards of offense. Like Kyle Trask threw for over 300 yards. And Kyle Pitts was a force. And Kadarius Toney had 7 catches for 92 yards. Ty Grantham and his engaged 8 Madden defense probably did them in. You run that against LSU, they're likely to beat you. But the thing about LSU is Bo Pelini's coaching the defense. And it's gotten so bad at LSU that Ed Orgeron has told Bo Pelini to fix it. I don't care if you run one defense and we run one coverage, run it right. Those were his words. And that is the Ed Orgeron that many of us all know to be the dude, right? That's the guy that was at Ole Miss. That's the guy that was coaching those first couple of years at LSU. That's the guy who was on the hot seat. And knowing that you're in this transition year where I was very clear that LSU's going to catch 5 losses, and LSU fans kept wanting to show up here to tell me I was crazy and to call me all sorts of names. Now you're looking at not just 5, but probably 6, because you took an L to a Missouri team that you should have never taken, even if it is in Columbia. You had 4 opportunities to win this thing on the goal line, and you failed all 4 times. It doesn't matter that Miles Brennan and Terrace Marshall are out there cooking Missouri's defense if LSU's defense is going to get cooked by a freshman quarterback and Eli Drinkwitz in his first year at Missouri. That ain't going to cut it. Now, if you ask me whether or not Kyle Trask in Florida can do that against LSU, I'm going to tell you indubitably, right? Because Kyle Trask and Florida have figured this thing out in that they should score every time they have the ball. And by score, I mean get 6. They're that good offensively. And if it wasn't for Todd Grantham, perhaps they'd be a little bit better defensively, because 2020 Florida looks a lot like 2019 LSU. The difference is they caught a loss against a really good Texas A&M team, or at least a good Texas A&M team, which leads me to this conversation about the SEC West and how it is all sorts of discombobulated and all over the place. So I want to get into that. First, I want to check out who's in the chat. See, Becca Lou says, it's going to be a long season for my LSU Tigers. You want to keep the faith, but MSU and Mizzou, come on, man. It's a good observation. Bo Pelini, inexplicably, running man-to-man defense against KJ Costello as he continues to carve you up. Meanwhile, you see an Arkansas team that's able to just kind of play defense in a 4-2-5. Run zone. Stop people. Bo Pelini might want to put some zone into his 4-3. Marcus Anderson. Georgia going to beat Alabama. I think they might have some tricks up their sleeve. What if JT, the deep threat Daniels, starts the game after Alabama prepared for Bennett? I don't think it's going to matter either way. I don't. I mean, JT Daniels is a 5-star quarterback and he's good, but does he give you that much more upside? I'd need to see it first. And if he gave you that much more upside, I like to think that you'd start him against Tennessee, which is a good defense. Might even be a defense that's on par with Alabama, right? If you had it to go, then just run him out there, as opposed to Kirby Smart coming from the school of, I don't give a damn who the quarterback is, just don't turn the ball over. That's a man that decided to ride with Jake Fromm, even as he had Justin Fields on the roster. That tells you what Kirby Smart thinks about the quarterback position. See, Clemson, Georgia, yeah, y'all. Some of these observations, y'all need to work on these. Y'all need to work on these. Okay, Brodney Poole is saying the OC at Ole Miss is from the Art Briles football tree, the O-line coach, and the tight ends coach also. Yeah, so that's a very good point. Jeff Levy being the offensive coordinator at Ole Miss, coming out of the Briles coaching tree. And I've been really critical of guys without the last name Briles running the veer and shoot, but it seems to be working to a degree. Now, I think some of that is Jeff Levy marrying the offense with Lane Kiffin forcing that philosophy to take hold. But I believe the offensive line coach is Randy Scott, and that dude makes it go, because knowing that he was the offensive line coach when Briles had it cooking in Baylor, and knowing that Phil Montgomery was the offensive coordinator at that time, and you saw separation of those two people, Tulsa hadn't been all the way good offensively. And I think a lot of it has to do with how they coach those offensive lines to play ball, because it's not necessarily how you traditionally coach offensive line. And I think that's the thing that gets missed when we start talking about the Briles offense and how they run that veer and shoot, because it's deadly. And I love the way that they do it, but also the way that they're deploying the tight end. And Kenny Yeboah, who transferred in from Temple, is different than what they were doing at Baylor as well. So, yeah, I'm with you on that, Brodney. And by the way, that is Brodney Poole, for those of y'all that are asking. We went through this once before. Cool dude being on the channel. But I think that's a good observation. Imagine UGA pulls reverse and Bama game plans for Stetson. You already said that. Why are we still talking about JT Daniels being some sort of change agent here? You're undefeated, Georgia. Why are you messing with this? Like, I'm not even the dude that was on the Stetson Bennett train. I'm making jokes about him during the preseason as getting to wear a jersey. But now he's got the job. So why do you want to take the job from him when it's working? If it wasn't working, I would be with you on this. But you don't need him to win you the football game. You just need him not to lose it for you because you're getting 6 from your defense on general principle. Monty Rice, Eric Stokes, Richard LeCount, they're out here balling. Azeez Ojulari is balling. Why are you messing with this? You're a defensive football team. If you got to go get buckets, we can have that conversation. But right now, you ain't got to go get buckets. Right now, all you got to do is play defense because it's almost like the 2000 Baltimore Ravens out there. It doesn't matter who's on the offense. It only matters that you play defense. Stop playing with this. Let's see. Kellen Kamer, what's up, man? Miles Brennan has been better than expected. Bo Pelini has managed to produce an FCS defense with 4 and 5 star talent. I disagree with that. I believe that Miles Brennan has been good. I disagree that Bo Pelini's put out an FCS defense because Derek Stingley Jr. is still there, and y'all wanted Jabril Cox. Remember that? There are a lot of us that think Jabril Cox gets drafted in the first round, regardless of what the hell happens with LSU defense. A lot of us believe in Elias Ricks, Cordell Flott. These dudes that y'all know can ball. And you're trying to lay this at Bo Pelini's feet. And I get that. I understand. He's the guy in charge. But I don't think that they're running an FCS defense. I just think that they're new. I think that nobody got an opportunity to coach up their philosophy. And the coaches that have been doing the best job have been the ones that have embraced, hey, my playbook's probably going to be 3 pages, okay? I just need them to be able to run these plays. Everything else is fundamentals. Everything else is blocking, tackling. That's what that is, right? Bo Pelini wants to run his defense. I don't fault him for that. But his players can't run the defense because they don't know the defense. And you're trying to run man-to-man knowing that you think you can just put your athletes out there and let them go. Turns out that's not what you can do. You got a lot of young kids that don't know what they're doing out there and have to actually identify their sight adjustments and get used to the pattern matching idea because a lot of these dudes don't run pattern matching in high school, right? That's why you're running man-to-man. You're just saying stick with your man. But when you're running crossing routes all the time, that's a really difficult thing to do, especially when you see as many natural pick plays as you will against an air raid because the air raid is not new to the SEC. It's new to this SEC. But Mike Leach was running that at Kentucky, and he ran it so well at Kentucky that Bob Stoops, who was defense coordinator at Florida, took the job at Oklahoma and went to Hal Mumme and said, can I have your offensive coordinator? Because he's the only guy in the country that's giving me fits. So Mike Leach ends up at Oklahoma, Texas Tech, and then on to Washington State, and now at Mississippi State. But outside of that, Iowa Wesleyan ran air raid in 1989 with Hal Mumme and Mike Leach. Mike Leach skipped out on going to pass the bar. They're going to law school so he could take a stipend to coach Iowa Wesleyan football. Now, the premise behind running the air raid is exactly that you want to be able to beat up on an LSU team. When they have more talent than you, the only thing you can depend on is math. So you want to run more wide receivers to one space than they can cover. You want to force them to actually play sound football. Because if you let them out-athlete you, they will win. That's why you see such quick game from the air raid. It is devised so that shorter, slower dudes have an opportunity to try to win, right? This is one of the reasons why we look at zone in basketball. We say zone is for cowards. We say zone is for cowards because a lot of those dudes don't actually have to match up. They never learn how to play this game with their chest. They learn to depend on the principles of the defense, which is something you generally do if you're not talented. You also generally do it if you're not courageous, which is another way of saying you're a coward. I like the air raid because I would use it to attack people in the same way that I would use the wishbone to attack people, the same way I use the flexbone to attack people. And I also know the air raid like I know the air raid offense better than I know any other offense. Like the only other one that I've actually been really intrigued with is basketball on grass, and that's spread. Problem with that is I don't want to run a fullback at quarterback. I want to run a quarterback at quarterback. I want to run a dude that can throw the ball 70 yards downfield and runs a 4.4 40. That's what I want. I want to run a pro raid, right? What Oklahoma does. Now, the difference between the air raid and the pro raid is you're going to run the ball way more than you throw it, or at least as many times as you throw it. And you're also going to not shy away from, why don't we just line up and beat the hell out of people? Kind of like what the Seattle Seahawks try to do every year. And then last night, that was really interesting to watch because DK Metcalf is exactly that kind of dude that I think I would love to coach in an air raid because he's just out there flying. He's got one speed in his fifth gear. You know, like Chris Collinsworth is like, I thought Russell Wilson was going to overthrow DK Metcalf by 25 yards and nearly ran that down. And you saw what kind of game that dude had. I'm just saying that if you give me the air raid and you let me run it with courage and bravery, it's going to work more times than not. I'm not going to depend on a bunch of slow dudes to make this thing work, though I do like the properties of the air raid and the principles of the air raid. Let's see. God, Arkansas versus Ole Miss will be a shootout. I hope so, but here's the thing. Felipe Franks looks really great on paper. Sometimes he scares the hell out of me when he's back there, man. I'm like, what are you doing with the ball? Why are you doing that with the ball? Because the thing about Arkansas is that they believe in what they're doing. Let me say that again. They believe in what they're doing. Like Kendall Briles has them confident offensively. Barry Odom has them confident defensively. They're not only making tackles and making plays, they're playing the kind of football that you expected to be played by LSU. And if you look at the SEC West, if we're doing power rankings to go Alabama at 1, right? You got to go with Arkansas or Texas A&M at 2. I'm going to go with Arkansas because I trust Arkansas to actually want to go win a football game as opposed to ampersand you that's waiting on Florida to screw this up. So let's go Florida at 3 there, or 4, excuse me, not Florida. A&M at 3. And then let's go 4. What are you talking? Ole Miss, right? Auburn? Ole Miss over Auburn? Auburn over what? Dare I say it? LSU? Because LSU looks like they could be what we expected Missouri to be this year. Which is wild to think about. Because even after losing 34 players off of last year's team, I expected them to be decent. I didn't expect them to be good. I expect them to be decent. But decent might just be 5-5 for them. That might be what that is. Meanwhile, I believe that Arkansas, 1, as I did in the segment over the weekend, got robbed of a win against Auburn. 2, Auburn ain't that good. And 3, you rank Arkansas based off of how they're playing. Because you look at these rankings and you see North Carolina at number 5 and you're going, how is it North Carolina is considered the 5th best team in the country and Arkansas can't even get votes? Like for a top 25. Why can't we just put them in there? It's all moving and shaking anyway. What the hell does Minnesota and USC need to do in the top 25 right now? They don't play football in the case of Minnesota for another 2 weeks. Case of USC, like a month. Rank Arkansas. Stop being a coward about it. So you got else in here. GT will upset Georgia Tech? This fool said Georgia Tech gonna upset Clemson. Yo, man, I got some oceanfront property right here in Oklahoma that I want to sell you. I'm going to make you a really good deal, okay? I'm going to throw in the boat and gate for free, fool. What you talking about, Georgia Tech? If Miami can't get more than 17 on Clemson, the hell makes you think that a Georgia Tech team that couldn't even beat Central Florida is going to beat Clemson? Why are we being stupid today? I know it's Monday, but damn. Let me see what else got in here. Why is it that the first thing I read when I join the stream, I don't know, dog. Like Clemson fan jumping in here like, yo, what did I do? I didn't even piss nobody off this weekend. Like, what did I do? Let me see. What else we got in here? Leave that man alone. Nothing is broken with Stetson Bennett. Why substitute when we're winning? Some people will pay for servicemen when they brand new, straight off the production line item. Dude is feeling some kind of way about that. Let's see. Derek Bailey's from Albany. What up, RJ? Albany, Georgia. Hey, believe we have a good D, but offensively I'm almost there. We just have to ride the mailman till the wheels fall off the mail truck. All right, so I want to speak to the Georgia fans who are not very optimistic about this weekend. Like, I did the preview segment for the noon segment today. Check that out if you haven't. But the comments on it from Georgia fans are like, look, till we beat Alabama, we ain't beat Alabama. Comments on it are, look, I know that we feel good, but we're not that good. I don't think. I thought the Georgia fans was going to feel kind of nasty going into this game at Bryant-Denny. I thought seeing as be able to steal Scott Cochran away from Alabama, Scott Cochran, who was the longest-serving lieutenant to Nick Saban at Alabama since Kirby Smart, Scott Cochran, who might have actually took more pictures of the recruiting board before he left, a la Kirby Smart. Scott Cochran, who feels some kind of way that he was rebuffed when he asked to be an on-the-field assistant for Nick Saban. I just thought that y'all would feel some more bad blood in there. And what I'm getting is, nah, man. I'm going to keep my trash talking to a minimum because I don't want it coming back to bite me. That's how good Alabama has been. Georgia fans can't even get behind the number 3 team in the country because they're so terrified of Alabama. Now, I understand. You lose the SEC championship game 2017. You lose the national championship game 2017. I get that. I understand. You get beat by a really great LSU team in the SEC championship last year. I understand. But I feel like y'all should feel some kind of way going into this game. Because defensively, this is the most indefensible defense that Georgia has played in the Kirby Smart era. So why not feel some kind of way about it? Why not have yourself a day? It's 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on a Saturday night in Bryant-Denny. Why don't you go and just burn down Alabama? Burn it down. Why not? Believe in yourselves. Believe in yourselves. Take it from me, a dude that was really negative about Oklahoma playing against Texas. Like, did not feel good about it. I'm texting with my homeboy, Texas fan, and he came to the conclusions like, we are both wildly pessimistic about our football teams. Like, yes! Because I know that this is the worst OU team that Texas had faced in 6 years. And yet they still beat Texas. So I'm just saying, I understand where you're coming from. But have some faith because y'all are a good football team, unlike Oklahoma. Let's see. What's he got in here? What's your opinion on Heupel? I'm not sold on him. Yeah, man, I think he's perfect for Central Florida. I think if he moved to an SEC school, it wouldn't go that well. I don't think that Josh Heupel is built like Lane Kiffin, though I think that's the corollary. I think that's the comparison. I think that Lane Kiffin has matured in a way that I did not think that Lane Kiffin would ever mature. Like when he was head coach at USC, it was bad. He was petulant. He was a child. He got run out on a rail in Tennessee. He ends up at the Nick Saban Rehabilitation Clinic, takes that job to offensive coordinator, and then gets fired after winning the college football playoff semifinal game against Washington because he's calling plays that they hadn't practiced in the week leading up, and Saban had enough. He said, just take the job at Florida Atlantic. Your focus is not here. And that's gotta suck, right? So the way that Kiffin put it when talking about his relationship with Saban is like, it's like a divorce. It's like a bad divorce. They're not really friends. I mean, they're not so pissed at each other that they don't want to talk. But, they're not exactly like texting each other and picking each other up after losses. And I think when you talk about Heupel and you talk about Oklahoma, for instance, that's Heupel and Bob Stoops because I don't think they've actually spoken since Bob fired him and brought in Lincoln Riley. Plus, you got to remember, Josh was OC over at Missouri before taking the job at Central Florida. What job would he take in the SEC? Don't nobody want Vanderbilt. So what do you think he's going to do? Think he ends up taking over a piss-poor ACC team like a Va-Tech? Maybe. It could work there. But I think a lot of that also has to do with Randy Shannon was defense coordinator. And recruiting the hell out of Florida, you're going to put up points. Because Florida only lacks offensive linemen. That's it. You can get everything else, quite literally, in South Florida, Central Florida, or Northeast Florida, Lower Georgia. Okay? Like Derrick Henry comes out of Florida. Lamar Jackson comes out of Florida. We can go on here. I think a lot of it has to do with location. Because if you put Josh Heupel in Nebraska, where Scott Frost is, he probably has the same sort of, experience that Scott Frost is having in Nebraska right now. Because it's really difficult to recruit to Nebraska. What's in Lincoln? More to the point, who's in Lincoln? Ain't nothing there but you. Like, they make jokes about Oklahoma, but Oklahoma's 3 hours from Dallas, right? 4 hours from St. Louis. Tulsa's right there. Oklahoma City Thunder right there. You got stuff to do. There ain't jack to do in Nebraska. Whereas at Central Florida, it's Orlando. It's Disney World. You can get to a coast either side. I think a lot of that has to do with location. And I think Heupel's in a great spot right now. The dude that I would be really interested to see what he does after this year is 34-year-old Marcus Freeman, because I've been on the Marcus Freeman train for 2 years. For 2 damn years. I wanted Marcus Freeman to take a top Power 5 coordinator position or get himself a Group of 5 head coaching position, because I think that dude is absolutely a stud. So stop talking about Heupel in that way. Start talking about Marcus Freeman in Cincinnati in that way. So we got us in here. Does LSU's season show that Ed Orgeron didn't deserve the Coach of the Year in 2019? No, it doesn't. I mean, they went undefeated. Still one of the better teams to ever play college football. I think you could rank them number 3 on the all-time list behind 1945 Army and 95 Nebraska. Because that 95 Nebraska team, nobody was even close. Nobody was even close to that Nebraska team at all. And you think about the competition that was around in that time. It's stupid. But yeah, let him hold that Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year award. Got himself into a $9 million contract annual. Yeah. Is it worth that to you, LSU? Knowing that y'all won national championships with Les Miles and Saban before that? We'll find out. Man, I got a stuffy nose today. RJ, I believe positive thinking. It's just that first half play keeps me from trash talking. Yeah, I get it. I understand. Dude got UGA winning 49-32 over Bama. I don't think UGA is going to put up 49. I know they put up 44 on Tennessee, but I don't think they're going to put up 49. I think this game is, 35-31? And I'm going to pick Bama, right? Because I also picked Bama to win the national championship in January, okay? So that's where that pick is coming from. I think Georgia can do with the loss and still make the SEC championship game, and then maybe they can get over the top of an Alabama. But I don't really care who wins this game in October, because I think those are going to be 2 teams that are there at the end. That I also think that Mac Jones has got better weapons than Stetson Bennett. I mean, Najee Harris is ridiculous. And you know what it is with Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith. I mean, yeah, JT Daniels has been cleared to play football for 2 weeks. They just haven't played him. Answering the question from Michael Jones. Let me see what else got in here. Corey Karhoff. Ain't that on Saban, though? Like, maybe you should throw a curveball at Kiffin that he's not ready for. I mean, to a degree. But you also got to remember, Saban recruits in the way that he recruits so that he doesn't have to throw curveballs. Like, Saban loads up so that he can be a Aroldis Chapman. Okay? That ain't to say that Aroldis Chapman can't get yanked yard. He threw 100 miles an hour over the plate. Tampa Bay outfielder put it into the second deck at 105. So it's possible. It's just not going to happen all the time. It's just not. That said, if I can load up the cupboard to where I can tell you what I'm doing and you still can't stop it, that's how Nick Saban has won for the last 11 years. I don't see why he would change that, except to say he did make that change to the dual threat quarterback, the guy that can move around back there, because he saw that the Greg McElroys of the world, the A.J. McCarrons of the world weren't going to get it done. Okay? I would recruit like Nick Saban only to be able to say, look, I'm going to run base defense, base offense, because my athletes are just better than your athletes, which is what Jimmy Johnson used to win at Miami. I mean, you look at great college football teams, that's generally what it is. Like, the argument for LSU for so long was, it doesn't matter that they run I-formation murder football. They have better athletes. I mean, they had Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. come through, and they didn't win a national championship. They had Ryan Perrilloux come through. Couldn't win. They had Leonard Fournette come through. Couldn't win. And you think about what Clyde Edwards-Helaire is doing with Kansas City right now. Justin Jefferson at the Vikings, right? Like, you continue to look around, and you see, no wonder they won. They just were that good. And I don't know that they developed all that well, although everybody seems to be developing better than Texas. I think when you look at what they have in the cupboard, it shouldn't be close. Now, I also think there's something to be said about Lane Kiffin perhaps just being a good offensive mind alongside Jeff Lebby. Like that, maybe we're just not giving enough credit there. Because I know we think of Nick Saban in the way that we think of Bill Belichick, which is to say that, he is Lord of Lords, but that doesn't mean he can't bleed. I mean, for me, this Ole Miss thing is a Xerxes moment, right? This is Leonidas just showing everybody that you can make him bleed. They didn't win the war. Like, that's not what happened. The Persians beat the Spartans. That's what happened. The point of 300 was to show that the God King can bleed. Now we know that the God King can bleed in Alabama. Georgia's a better football team than Ole Miss, or at least I think so. What else got in here? Texas whiffs on Meyer. Do the Longhorns look at the next O'Brien Fleck? Take a swing at Venables. Man, I think everybody's going to take a swing at Venables. Like, I get that. But Venables doesn't want to go anywhere. As for PJ Fleck, I don't know that he wants the problems that Texas is going to pose to him. The problem with taking the job at Texas is that you got to win tomorrow. Like, Texas makes way too much money and recruits way too well to not win at least a conference championship every other year, if not every year. The thing that people want from PJ Fleck, he's giving them in Minnesota. They're not asking to win a Big Ten championship. They're asking to be respectable. They're asking to be a top 25 program. They're not asking for anything more than that. It's the same problem I would have with somebody trying to take over the job at Ohio State. Ryan Day's just been up to the task, right? Like, even Nebraska, right now, they just want to be respectable. They're not even asking, can we really do this thing, right? Like, they're asking, can we just not be bad? Can we be just kind of cool? Is that okay? So I get where you're coming from. As for Bill O'Brien, why do y'all keep wanting to give that man a job? Like, let Bill O'Brien just sit over there and cook for a while. Why do people keep bringing up Bill O'Brien as taking a job? Nothing that he's shown me at Houston means that he needs a job. And plus, we already know that he doesn't want to be a college football coach. He was that dude at Penn State, and he jumped to the NFL just as soon as he could. He don't want to do this. Like y'all take a swing at Joe Brady, but he don't want to do this either. He wants to coach in the NFL. That's the problem I think you're going to run into. You're going to try to hire Steve Sarkisian from Alabama? No, I don't want them problems. Don't want him at all. I think the move is Graham Harrell at USC. Okay? Tom knew this last year. Tom wanted to go hire Graham Harrell to be his offensive coordinator and was rebuffed. Had to end up taking Mike Yurcich, quarterback's coach at Ohio State. And I think in one way that's a gangster move. Because if you hire the dude that they wanted to hire to replace you, it's going to make it a little bit more difficult for him to just be like, yeah, I'll take the job. Because you hired him. Now you get to fire Tom Herman. You get to go hire Graham Harrell, who is a native son and one of the prize kiddos to ever come out of Enos, Texas, let alone Texas Tech, let alone the University of let alone Texas Tech University, and you get what you think is another Lincoln Riley, because that's what Texas really wants. Texas wants Lincoln Riley, and it burns Texas fans up that A, Lincoln Riley grew up in West Texas in Muleshoe, B, his mother and father are UT alums, and C, he grew up thinking about UT. He grew up thinking about Texas. And now he's the head coach of your arch nemesis and cooking you. 4 out of 5 meetings with head coach Lincoln Riley, UT's got L's. If you bring in Graham Harrell, you bring in a guy that's also a Leach disciple who believes in running the football. So go get Graham Harrell, give him the reins, and then see what you got. I think people are also going to take it a little bit easier on Graham Harrell in a way that they might not for this dude y'all want to give jobs in like Bill O'Brien and PJ Fleck. Because they have reputations as head coaches. Graham Harrell doesn't have that. Neither did Lincoln Riley. There's too many parallels there for Texas not to want a Graham Harrell. That's who I would pick to take the job. That's who I think should take the job. Let's see. What else we got in here? Could you see Eric Bieniemy going to be a head coach position in college, or does he stay in the NFL? Eric Bieniemy needs a head coaching job in the NFL. He needs one in the NFL, one, because that's where he wants to be a coach, and two, because Doug Peterson goes to Philly, they win a Super Bowl. Matt Nagy goes to Chicago, they get to be respectable real quick. They're a quarterback away, but they've been a quarterback away. The guys that coach underneath Andy Reid, particularly on the offense, have proven to be really good. Like, I think Bieniemy is probably going to get a look for that Detroit Lions job, though I don't want him to take it because they don't deserve him after what they did to Jim Caldwell. They don't deserve Eric Bieniemy. No. Make Eric Bieniemy the head coach of the Falcons. Give the Falcons a black head coach with an offensive brain. Like, between Eric Bieniemy and Byron Leftwich, you can't go wrong if you hire that dude at Atlanta. Let Eric Bieniemy be the Falcons head coach. Bring back the Michael Vick experience to Atlanta. And Chocolate City would know exactly what to do with Eric Bieniemy, even if he did play running back in Colorado. Like, they would know exactly what to do with this man. That's who I want to take the job in Atlanta. Eric Bieniemy. Let that man have that franchise. I guarantee you it's going to be fun. Let's see what we got in here. Everybody keep trying to make the Dallas Cowboys get a new head coach. Look here. The Cowboys is on hiatus. Dak is hurt. Okay? Dak is hurt. There is no hope for this team. Defensively, it's a trash fire. Okay? It's a trash fire. Now the franchise quarterback with the franchise tag, we have real questions about whether or not he gets to play football ever again. Okay? I don't want to hear anybody trying to make Dallas Cowboys get a head coach. Dallas Cowboys don't even need to be thinking about a head coach. A head coach ain't going to fix this. I mean, I ain't got no problems with Mike McCarthy, not like that. But I don't think that any other head coach is going to do better. You make Bill Belichick the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, it ain't going to change the Dallas Cowboys. We are a clown show. There is no hope for this team. It's all just clown moves. Just clown shoes and red nose. That's what the Dallas Cowboys are. Stop trying to make Eric Bieniemy take on this trash situation that is my Dallas Cowboys. Leave that man. Why do y'all hate Eric Bieniemy? I feel like y'all keep bringing up these conversations like making him a Houston Texans coach. For what? No. Put him in a place where he's going to win, where he has an opportunity to succeed. Stop trying to turn these great offensive coordinators, black offensive coordinators, into these change agents for these football teams that's trash. Like what Brian Flores is doing in Miami is getting overlooked. Because that's not the rule. That's the exception. So tired of y'all trying to put Eric Bieniemy in these bad situations. Stop that. Let's see. Dude says there's only one Michael Vick. There's only one Patrick Mahomes. One Tom Brady. You're not getting the point, do you? You get a change agent at quarterback. Do you realize that the Atlanta Falcons could take themselves into a situation where they get to draft Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields? Can you imagine Justin Fields being Atlanta Falcon? Hello! He's from Kennesaw, Georgia. Match him up with Eric Bieniemy in Atlanta. Why am I the person? You know what? I understand I talk about sports for a living. I understand I'm a sports talk show host, radio host. But doggone it, man. I didn't think that this was this hard to connect. Eric Bieniemy, Justin Fields, Atlanta Falcons. Hello. Why does that not make all the sense in the world to everybody? All y'all are consumed with sunshine. He's a great quarterback. Great dude. He's going to be a Jet. That ain't going to fix the Jets. The Jets are more trash than the Dallas Cowboys. Let me see. All this Falcons slander in here, man. Let me tell you something. The Falcons have been to the Super Bowl more times than the damn Dallas Cowboys in the past 20 years. As much trash as y'all want to talk about the Falcons, they were in that thing. Where the hell has Dallas been? That's what I thought. Sit down. Detroit won one friggin' playoff game in 40 years. Y'all trying to make Eric Bieniemy the head coach. Stop that. Who the hell are the Texans? Who are the Texans? Nothing. They're 1-4. They are wasting the best years of Deshaun Watson. with David Johnson back there. Come on, man. Stop that. Where do you think Dylan McCaffrey should transfer? Northern Arizona. Go play for your daddy. I don't care about Dylan McCaffrey. See, do you think Dwan Mathis deserves another shot at a starting guardian at wide receiver? Nah, man. I watched Dwan Mathis against Arkansas. I don't think he's gonna make it. I don't think he's gonna make it. I wanted it to be much better than it was. Like, I was going, yeah. And then you had to bring Stetson Bennett in, who's the third string dude, and he's outperforming Dwan Mathis in such a way we don't even get to talk about Dwan Mathis ever again. Maybe make him your slot receiver. Like, that's what it looked like. Let me see. Browns beat the best team in the nation. What? You mean the best defense? Because you can't have the best team in the nation. You got Phil Rivers. Also, those of y'all that are gassing up the Cleveland Browns being 4-1 for the first time since '94, show me the playoff win. Just show me the playoff win. Show me the playoff win. I'll wait. Y'all got something? Because I feel like Cincinnati has been there more often than Cleveland. And who the hell is Cincinnati? Man, Browns fans. Y'all talk too much. Let me see. Dude says Justin Fields beat out Trevor Lawrence at Elite 11. Elite 11 is rigged. Like it's rigged. They decide 75% of what they're going to do before those kids even show up to campus. It's why, like, Kyle McCord and those dudes were, like, outperforming Caleb Williams. He still won. And Caleb Williams is the OU commit. Like, Elite 11 is a showcase. It's not a competition. The rankings take care of a whole hell of a lot of that. So let's not act like that's the thing. Let's see. What else we got? Name one player who people think will go into the NFL but will stay and take advantage of an additional year of eligibility to stay. Sam Ehlinger. I think that's going to do it. That's a good place to stop. Thank y'all for tuning in live to the RJ Young Show. Please subscribe to the podcast, the RJ Young Show podcast, wherever it is you get your podcast. Leave a 5-star review, and we'll get back to you. All right. That is going to do it for me. Doses.